We're still trying to understand in depth about dementia, and it's still so deep with Sheila.
By giving that example, I'm not giving the exact test. What I'm trying to do is to illustrate the kind of things that would be looked for. For example, another one, apart from the numbers, is a series of pictures of different animals and that kind of thing. Or something else, if the person who's examining could then show you drawings of a clock. Okay, nowadays it might be different because a lot of people use digital, etc. But drawings for an older person, drawings of a clock with one arm there, say what time is that, what time is that, what time is that. Most people do know how to read the time.
Yes.
If the person no longer knew, then you know there's something wrong with the cognitive aspects.
So if they are not able to read the time, then something is it's a sign. Could be.
Could be. You see, these are things that we look for.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. Sheila's time.
What? Which one is it?
This is the... Wait. Okay. There.
Okay. That so that's 3 p.m.
What's the time?
6 p.m.
Okay. What's the time?
About 4, 5.
Now if... Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Now, if you suddenly found you were looking at the clock here and you couldn't tell what the time was, wouldn't you, Sheila, be worried?
Yes, I would.
Because it's something you have always known.
Yes.
That you don't even have to think about. So you see, that's one of the ways that we can see that there have been changes going on, even if they're not being picked up. If someone like my mother would no longer be able to tell you the time from a drawing, who has always had a wristwatch.
Wow.
You see?
Yeah. So she could tell time properly, but now...
That means there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You see? So those are some of the kind of, let's say, tests you could do with a person, face to face.
Yeah.
What has happened and what has progressed as far as clinical diagnosis is concerned and examinations and other procedures are concerned is that nowadays we've moved beyond X-rays. We've got CAT scans. We've got MRIs. It's an MRI that was done for my mother. And we've also got what are known as PET scans, PET scans, from which clinical diagnoses can be made fairly accurately. So that's the way it is done. Okay. Obviously, it's done differently in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world, a PET scan is extremely expensive, and there are very few places
that
you
do
can
it.
Get them, yes.
Okay. How is it done here in Uganda?
Here we do have some MRIs,
okay.
But there are many people who will be able to afford an MRI. A lot of it is you can have a CAT scan, but it always starts with the clinical diagnosis of a doctor first seeing the patient and then ruling out other causes of those symptoms. Okay, in looking at the forgetfulness, as I said, if I, as a son, had gone in and told the doctor that actually one of the strange things is she no longer remembers her cousins. She can remember the people at home, okay? But no longer remembers her cousins that I knew she knew, okay? Then you're beginning to see that something's wrong.
Okay.
You see, we all forget the names of the people we were in class with
it's possible.
when we were in P1. But once you start forgetting...
Probably won't remember,
But once you start forgetting family members, even those you grew up with, but even those you haven't seen for a long time, not even facially, but forget their names, then something is going on. As it progresses, there are other changes that take place. Yes.
Okay.
So, sorry about that.
Okay. So before we get to the part where the progressive changes, so you're just telling us that there is a part that is forgetfulness, that is normal.
Yes.
You know, forgetting your car keys is normal, but there's a thin line also. There's a part where it becomes red flag, where now the person progresses into you can't remember your family members, your relatives, the time, forgetting that you drove at all and you take a border.
Just the time. That wouldn't necessarily give you a red flag because you're not always looking at when people look at the time.
Yeah.
But if a person in their own neighborhood mucharo chenini, so to speak. If you live in a particular place of Bukolobi, a particular place of Bukoto, etc., or in an estate, but you get lost going home when you're in your own area, then that's a red flag.
There's a red flag.
If you get lost, even driving, let's say you're giving me directions to your house, which is a completely different town for the first time. Even with my Google Maps, I could get lost.
Yeah, true.
Even if I've been there twice, I could get lost the next time. Yeah. But if a person has been living in a particular area
for years,
and they walk through that area, they drive through that area, and all of a sudden they're beginning to get lost when they're coming home consistently, that's a red flag.
Those are signs to look out for. Okay.
And those are the kind of things that you, in a clinical examination, in history taking, the doctor would ask to look for those. Then later on, other red flags of something seriously going on is the person's ability to do things. It's no longer just forgetfulness. You can forget things, but still be able to do other things.
Okay.
Just because you're forgetting a number of things doesn't mean you've forgotten how to fry an egg.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you've forgotten how to make French toast.
Okay.
Okay? But once a person begins to forget how to do more complex things, that's an indication that it may have progressed even further. Okay?
Could you just give us an example there?
Give an example. Cook a meal.
Where the person has forgotten how they...
There'll be a stage where, rather than say cooking, let's say to bake a specific kind of pie or cake that has a specific recipe. They have always been doing it.
Yes.
They've always been doing it. They get all the things ready to do it, or they get the pan, and then all of a sudden...
They can't remember what goes where.
How do I make
I see.
French toast? I had in a Zoom once, it was quite extraordinary, a young lady from Singapore, Korea, who was describing, she has early onset dementia. And she said one of the most extraordinary moments was when she suddenly realized she could no longer remember how to make French toast. And she knew that I can't make French toast. You know?
Yeah.
So those are indications of progression.
Okay.
The ability to actually do more complex tasks, that then comes at a different stage.
I see.
Yes.
So before we really do get into this, the different stages, first of all, can a young person get dementia? And if they do, what are the signs? Is it only for the older people, or can young people as well get it? And how would you tell that there's something here? Yeah.
Young people can get it. And I'll use that question as a reason, as an excuse to actually address a specific issue. I must say, I really do like the way you are asking the question, such that rather than my going by rote that it is this and maybe is B this, C this, D this, D, I like the way you're asking questions so that we're talking about it from this point to this point to this point. The reason why I'm saying that is actually this year worldwide, the focus of Alzheimer's Disease International, which is made up of Alzheimer's associations all over the world, national associations, is actually, the phrase is let's talk about dementia, because people aren't. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much stigma, and one of the reasons people don't talk about it is because there's so much stigma.
And they just don't, some don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now when you're saying that, can young people get it? Yes, you see, there's an assumption, even amongst a lot of doctors, a huge number of doctors, the figures just gone out of my mind from a study that was done last year, but I do believe upwards of 30 or 40% of doctors all over the world, worldwide, actually think dementia is an aging process. It is not. Okay? Dementia is a condition. That's a neurodegenerative condition. It is a disease. It is a disease condition.
Yeah.
That's number one. So it's not normal aging. Number two, yes, young people can get it. There is what is known as early onset Alzheimer's. Okay? True, a very much smaller proportion get early onset Alzheimer's. So only about 5% of cases of Alzheimer's occur in people below the age of 65.
Okay.
Yes. The rest of them are normal onset or older people above the age of 65.
Okay.
because you've asked about that,
Yeah.
I will get to another factor that people are worried about when it comes to Alzheimer's. So let me use Alzheimer's as an example of dementia. That once your mother got it, once your father got it, you get it.
Yeah.
No, it's not as simple as that.
Because there's a factor that you mentioned, that genetic.
Genetic,
yes.
We're beginning to understand that there are a number of factors, environmental, lifestyle, and the genetic factor. Yes, without a doubt.
Yes.
It used to be assumed that it was a purely genetic pass on.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we do now know is that no, that isn't the case. However, in early onset Alzheimer's, the genetic factor is much higher.
I see.
In the other 95% of the cases, where it's late onset of normal Alzheimer's, no, that is actually much lower.
Okay.
So
it may not be genetic.
Yes,
That's
yes.
if the person is much older.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and because of that, even if there is a genetic, there are genetics in everything.
Yeah.
Because of that, we're beginning to look at the risk mitigation factors. How should a person live? What should a person do?
Exactly.
Etc. We do know that levels of alcohol consumption can actually affect the risk. We do know that the level of mental activity can actually mitigate a great deal. This is coming from our understandings of the way the disease works, etc. But it's important to emphasize that no, it's not a disease. It's not an aging process.
Okay.
It is a condition.
Okay.
Okay.
So a young person that probably consumes lots and lots of alcohol or anything else could actually stand at risk of getting dementia. Is that would that be correct?
It's a risk factor, but I would not put it that way.
Okay.
The young person that consumes lots and lots of alcohol will get dementia.
Yeah.
No. But we do know that the risk, put it the other way, that the risk is reduced by reducing the level of consumption.
Okay.
The risk is reduced by increasing the level of exercise. You see? The risk is reduced by increasing the level of mental activity.
I see.
We can now see it that way.
Okay.
Yes.
So Alzheimer's or dementia, if somebody is diagnosed with it, is it something that can heal with medication, or if you get it, you know that it's a lifelong, you have to sort of change your lifestyle or, accept the fact that it's here and there's ways to manage it? What would you say about that?
Ways to manage it. Yeah. Is there a cure? No.
There's no cure?
There's no cure.
Okay.
Are there drugs that can help along the way? Yes. There's some debate to the degree to which they help, but there's been some improvement. Okay. There is some hope in recent research findings looking towards a cure, looking towards drugs that can actually slow the disease down. But I again emphasize: is there a cure? No. Now, how do you move forward?
Yes.
Well, you in asking the question, you put it in a very important way. Is it something that the person should accept and move with? Yes, it is. It's a reality, but it's not only the person; it's the whole structure, the whole family. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease has an extraordinary impact on families. I think
that's not said a lot. Yeah.
So I say that from the point of view of having interacted with families that are going through this. I say that from having gone through it. Even as a doctor, it has an extraordinary impact. And it's only in a way because I went through it, and this is why I want to help people, that I actually began to realize what they meant when they say the effects on families of dementias, Alzheimer's and other dementias, is actually greater than other terminal diseases, because other terminal diseases have been accepted.
Sure.
People in a way prepare for it.
Yeah.
Not only that, people in a way, if it's cancer and it's caught early enough, there's hope of a cure.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. People
and they'll call it cancer.
Yes, and they'll call it cancer.
Yeah.
People talk about it. So therefore, what happens is the person and the family live with it. It helps coping.
So the impact in families is really strong.
The impact is immense.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I thank you for this and why we're doing this is when we say let's talk about dementia. The impact is immense, but people don't talk. they suffer in extraordinary
People,
silence.
yes, people don't talk. Yes, that's true.
I mean, if people, it's any terminal disease, any long-term disease has a tremendous impact on the patient, on the family, on the pocket, etc. But you see, there are others now that if someone has cancer, yes, people talk about it.
Yeah.
If a patient thinks, or a family member thinks that someone might have symptoms, they actively seek the help.
Yes.
They find out what to do.
Yeah.
They know what to do.
What
they
it
know
takes.
who to go to. They don't hide it.
That's true.
What has changed over the last 20 years nowadays, even though there's still stigma, even within the stigma, people who are HIV positive, they know where to go to. People now go and look for their own tests.
Yes.
When they do have a test, if it is positive, they actually look for treatment.
That's right.
The antiretrovirals. Again, it's not a full treatment, but it keeps you going.
And they're intentional about taking that medication.
So that has changed. But when it comes to Alzheimer's and other dementias, people still don't talk about it for a number of social reasons. The person has gone mad. The person is bewitched.
Yes, there's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then also because part of the stigma, the social stigma, is people don't want to share the incredible impact it's having on them as families.
Exactly.
Conditions like this can tear families apart.
That's true.
It's not only the cost, you see, and it is very expensive, but it's not only the cost, but it is the disagreements on how they should be cared for, which doctor they should go to. There is no cure, but someone is always looking for a mitigating factor.
Yeah.
They're looking for something that will make mommy or daddy better.
Yeah.
And it's not happening.
Yeah.
So the fights internally, not direct fights, but disagreements of which doctor to go to.
Yeah.
Hopping doctors, that in itself has a toll.
Who is going to pay for this?
Not only who's going to pay, but you see, if you go from one doctor to the next, you're expecting something, and it isn't coming.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. So
there's no closure. But then, also one of the extraordinary impacts is because of the progression of the disease. As it progresses, some of the symptoms are mood and behavior change. The person begins to change. They can become extremely agitated, extremely anxious. They can become violent.
Wow.
In later stages where there's a complete mood and behavior change and loss of social inhibitions, someone with late stage Alzheimer's who has been taken out, who's gone out, will have no problem putting their trousers down and taking a pee in public.
Is it because they're not thinking about the impact, or?
No, it's not because they're not thinking. You see, remember what I told you about the damage, destruction, and death of the brain cells in a particular area? There's a certain part of your brain that actually triggers let me put it this way, triggers your inhibition signals. You want to do something, but it's constantly firing to keep you under control.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what that part of the brain does. It keeps what other people take as antisocial under control.
Okay.
If that part of the brain is no longer doing what it functions, then if a person gets the idea that I'm just going to take a pee, that part of the brain that would have
told them, this is not outside, you
would
can't
have
do it
actually
here.
handled it so that it does not happen.
Yes.
It's no longer working.
Wow.
You see? So a lot of things like that.
So doctor, just before you proceed from there, is that why sometimes you find that they'll just be people rush to take the patient to the person to Butabika without actually getting to know what the issue is? They'll just think it's a mental case.
If it's not witchcraft, it's a mental illness. That's what people think.
Yeah.
Whereas you see, that's the reason why in a lot of lower income countries, Alzheimer's is actually handled by psychiatrists as opposed to neurologists. Okay, but it's not a psychiatric disease. It's not a psychiatric disease. It's a degeneration of the brain cells that is leading to something else. It's like if you have degeneration of the blood vessels that leads to this. Because people are now used to it, or because people are used to the effects of what happened to cells coming to cancer, they accept it and talk about it. And see, what then happens is that families, because they can't share it, because of the aspects I've actually told you about, suffer a great deal. You then get the stages where a person getting towards And so they're beginning to forget everything. They're forgetting everyone. You had said that you spoke to Sheba.
Yes.
Before.
Yes.
Once when I had spoken to her, she had mentioned to me an incident that occurred where her mother had forgotten other people at home and how it hurt.
Yeah.
You see, let me put it this way. In our languages, in Luganda, when you say someone agenzi, what do you mean? When we say agenzi, we mean they're dead.
Yeah.
But you see, the person you know, when it comes to Alzheimer's, as it progresses, and this I look at it from the point of view of my father. They'd been married for well over 50 years.
Yeah.
I remember once, the first time, some very, very close family friends who were a bit older than me, they had babysat me. So they had known my parents way before I did. These close family friends had babysat me. I remember one of them commenting, and this must have been 40 to 50 years into my parents' marriage, that there was a function. It was the first time she had ever seen my father at a function without my mother. So that's the life they lived.
Yeah.
But then it reaches a point where, to someone like him, someone you've lived with for over half a century, the person's no longer there. Agenzi. Now think of it that way. The spouse is grieving a loss every single day. It is like grief of someone who's died.
Yeah.
Now imagine...
Every other day they watch this person get worse and worse.
Imagine the emotions. Now, when someone actually does die, you grieve, you bury, you accept, you don't accept, but it gets to a point you move on, or you don't. But in this particular case, you can be going through this every day for the next 5 years.
That's true.
It's
like you're dying a little every day, but no one even knows about how you're feeling inside.
How you're feeling, but you won't say it because
our focus is now on the person, the patient in this case. We're not thinking the people closest to...
This is one of the reasons why, having gone through it and looking at certain things in retrospect, I actually realized that no, we really, really need to actually focus also on the caregivers. I remember at one particular stage that I actually told my father that, if you don't get a grip of this thing, you will die before her. You are going down. It wasn't, but then I began to realize this is a common thing you see in many spouses. Where you then begin to have an issue is where the way they're reacting to their spouse, the children might not understand it, but the person's grieving it. So that can create tension between a father and his children or a mother and their children because they do not understand the reaction.
And that actually could impact society as well. Because no one knows what you're going through, but somehow it comes off.
But a very key thing, and it's not only in Africa, is that the stigma is still very high. People do hide it. You see? And that's why one of the reasons why we're saying let's talk about dementia. Why do people hide it? Because it gets to the stage where someone, as I said, can take their clothes off in public, can suddenly start swearing in public in a way that others would find it extraordinarily embarrassing. Or even if they do it at home, you don't want people to know. So you stop talking about it. In our communities, because, as they say, bewitched. You see? So that's one of the reasons why people don't come forward. And which is one of the things we're trying to actually bring out and highlight, about Alzheimer's.
So how do people cope? How do you manage this situation? You happen to be somebody, let's say you're a caretaker. Okay, I'll take an example of you, Dr. Paul. Your mom was going through this. Your dad, your entire family was involved. Now, how does a family manage? As time goes on, the person is getting worse. The signs are showing and they're getting stronger. How do you cope? How do you cope as a family? How is there any way to...
using us as an example, in a way is not a good example. Because I'm very aware and very thankful of the fact that we are privileged. You see, if we needed drugs, it was expensive, but we can get together. We could buy them. We could source them if they weren't available over here. When it gets to the stage of where home care is needed, we could put together, we could afford it, so to speak. There was a stage where some of the members of the family, earlier stages, weren't in the country. it was my father, but I was here.
Yeah.
So it was decided that my mom to come back to Uganda. When I was traveling for work, my wife was here, would go and pick her up and go before the late stages. So you see, how do you cope? You come together as a family, but take us as an example, or many of the people we know, it's not necessarily a good example. We're privileged. Now, 60% of all the new cases of dementia in the world now are actually thought to be in lower income and medium income countries like Uganda. If it's that high, that means this is happening in the villages.
Yes, definitely.
So the question is, how can they cope?
Exactly. And what is even going on in there?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
It is estimated that every 3 seconds, someone gets dementia. Not is diagnosed with dementia, because the level of diagnosis worldwide, we haven't reached that stage yet. It's kind of like, let's say, COVID. How many people have COVID? Some countries are testing 1,000 people a day. We are testing this. It depends on your resources. But it is estimated that every 3 seconds someone gets dementia.
And yet you wonder why this doesn't get not so much attention, and yet, Stigma.
You see? No one wanted to talk about HIV/AIDS when it was still called SLIM.
Sure.
SLIM. Etc. Stigma. You see? If dementia was a country, it would be, I believe, the 16th richest country in the world. Dementia, the economic impact of dementia worldwide is $1 trillion.
Wow.
Now, think about it. 60% of cases are in countries like ours. What's the economic impact in our country? Now, you see the economic impact coming not from people like myself or my family buying the drugs for it, but people in the village. What happens in the village? If someone gets this disease, or not even in the village, over here, if someone gets this disease, they need to be looked after.
Oh, yeah.
What happens? Ding, 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 voila, come here. That becomes your life from that point on.
Yeah.
Now, if she's 15, and this person has dementia and is going to be around for the next 10 years, she will be 25. She didn't go to school. From 15 to 25, her life is done. You see, she has lost out on a very significant factor of the development of young women in her life. And it's young women who are impacted most, education-wise and socially, in lower and middle income countries, because it's a matter of who's going to look out for the boys. You see? So think of the social impact there and the economic impact on that factor.
And then also the fact that if, let's say, it's in the villages, people are going to be selling their cows, they're going to be selling houses, plots of land, and we are not, people don't even know this, but it goes as far as somebody selling their entire property for their family member that's suffering from this, and yet, for some reason, people out there don't get to know. So the family suffers until...
And the interesting thing is, you get in a lot of the countries here, they're selling property, but they're selling property to go to the witch doctor.
Oh, yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
But it's still you're selling property.
Yeah.
Whether it's a medical doctor, a witch doctor, or because of being cursed, etc. or not, or they're selling property in order to go and make donations in church against the curse or not, you are still selling all your property.
It's true.
You see?
True.
Because no one has talked about the condition and what it actually is.
Yes.
To emphasize that, I have been asking people, and I don't think we actually have a word for Alzheimer's or dementia.
In our local languages.
You've come across it where the reference is made in terms of Ogusiru. A certain thorough level of stupidity, kind of thing. But you see, if something doesn't have a word, it's very difficult to actually address it.
That's right.
If something doesn't have a word and people have known it's there, it means society has refused to look at it.
We've turned a blind eye.
Yes, and that's stigma. That's where the stigma comes from. Because you refuse to look at it, it means that it's something not to be discussed. So therefore, someone who has it is stigmatized. You're ostracized. You see? So when you ask her, how do people cope? If, as quickly as possible, seek, if you think the symptoms there, seek medical advice, seek medical care, seek a diagnosis, etc. That's one of the most important things.
Okay.
Why? Because if you do get a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever, you can find out from people to help you how can it be dealt with, what kind of support groups can there be, what drugs are there at the moment to slow it down.
Yes.
But it's not only drug treatment, what other things, exercise, diet, etc.
Yes.
Also, very importantly, while the person is still relatively okay, it gives you the chance to make legal and financial decisions.
Yeah.
Now, again, coming back to our societies, a man has dementia. The way our societies work, and this is reflected in the law, those are some of the aspects that impact the families. And as I was just about to say, one of the reasons why as I had said earlier on, one of the reasons why it does help to get a diagnosis as quickly as possible. And by the way, when people are initially given the diagnosis, in my experience, the majority have come across denial. They look for a second opinion. Then they look for a second opinion, which is actually the third, and then a second opinion, which is actually the sixth. But yes. So that's expected. But still, at least, there's knowledge. Okay? I've spoken about getting, you see, the denial cannot be passed through unless it's passed through. The sooner you know, the better. But part of it is also to extend the normality of life and make the life of those affected by dementia as good as possible. By saying those affected, I don't mean only the patient, I mean the family. The sooner you start planning for that, the better. Part of the planning being, I can tell you, it will reach a stage where if you've got a parent or a spouse who has dementia, when it gets to a severe stage, you are going to have to move them to a different room. It's as simple as that. Okay? You're not going to be able to share them. For a number of reasons. If they're going through a violent phase and there happens to be a sharp object. Elsewhere in the world, we've had so many cases of where, let's say in the United States, guns are legal. The person with dementia shot his son, shot his wife.
Oh my.
Yes, because it's there. You're going to have to. If you can plan, I can tell you, you'll get to the stage whereby if you're sharing bank accounts, you are going to have to remove the signatory authority of that person.
That's really
from
hard.
Those issues. And it is very, very, very hard. You see?
Very hard. No wonder the denial, because...
Yes. When it came to my father, as I said, they'd been married for over 50 years. I had gone on about it. It was after his only daughter called him from Sweden and said, do it. That's when he said, yeah. And I said, no, how? How can I?
Because it sounds or seems cruel to do it.
It's
especially,
people feel that it's disloyalty. But you see, if you don't have someone to help them through, then there's the other aspects about the legal factors, is that there's always someone there to take advantage. You see? Let's imagine you have joint property or joint this with your wife or your husband who has dementia, and other people know. So all I need to know is know their state. But if they know me well enough, I can tell them, you come, they'll trust me. I say, sign this.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
So it's to protect the person that knows the legal aspects. But then, very importantly, so as to actually prepare yourselves and the person that this is going to happen. As the condition progresses and the person knows it's getting progressively worse, it can be very frightening. Because each person knows they're going to get to a point where they actually don't know anyone. They can't look after themselves. They can't take themselves to the toilet, they can't take themselves to the bathroom, they can't feed themselves. And many active people can't imagine living like that. You see? That's the thing. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to actually get an early diagnosis. Thereafter, it's support.
And to face it, yes.
Now, to face it, even saying to face it, no, it really isn't that. Again, I learned the hard way, it not being a hard way, but from reality. You don't just wake up and face it. It changes every single day. And even if you know medically what's going to happen, no, it's different. To get to the stage where the person doesn't know you, that hits you.
That's right.
To get to the stage where, again, the very final stages, the person has lost appetite. The motor function is going, so they can no longer move. The weight loss, if they live that long, all of a sudden there's a crash in weight loss. It is something else to see. You see, this is again part of the stigma. People will come and look at the patient and say, "You're starving them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're doing this to them."
Yeah.
People will come and they'll walk away. I wouldn't treat my this like that.
They have no clue what is going on.
But there again, I know somebody whose father had, and this friend of mine, this lady, went through a period until I told her that no, that is actually part of the disease. For a couple of years, had extreme level of guilt that I didn't do what was right. How? I wasn't feeding him right. I said, until I told her that no, that happens.
Regardless of what you're feeding the person with, there will just be that.
It's sudden.
Yeah. What about the height and?
Oh yeah. I really do like it because it's one of the last photographs of with myself with my mother. Actually, I was wearing this jacket where she's around me. We're standing in the we're in front of the house, no cars, etc. With her head against my chest. But unlike being there, it was not here. She was probably down, and she had shrunk.
So before that, she was about you were about height mates.
Yeah. No. I was quite a bit taller, but it wasn't down there.
Yeah. So she had now.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It really is something. So you see, again, then people don't realize that you imagine if a child or a spouse, someone else won't understand why they won't necessarily want to go into the room every day.
Yeah.
To look.
Yeah.
You see, it's not everyone who can.
Yeah.
Some of us can.
Yeah.
Etc.
But not all can take that
but then the other
emotional pain.
The other people look at it and say they don't care. How are they doing this, etc.
Yeah.
You see, so it's partly because of reasons like this that the stigma is there. Stigma not only of people saying you're bewitched, but even self-stigmatization. I cannot.
Yeah, or I'm not doing enough.
Yes, I'm not doing enough. I can't show what is going on.
Yeah.
Fortunately, when my mother...
You don't want judgment from people. Yeah.
Yes, fortunately, when my mother passed on and we went to church, we were quite open. Okay, she passed away at this time, etc., etc., but she had Alzheimer's for this long, and this is what has happened. Yeah. And because of that, we did get a response of quite a number of people saying, you know what, I've got this problem. You know, so it was a start.
Oh, so people would actually come and tell you that, we are going through the same thing.
Yes.
Because you are open about it.
Yes. Wow. So it's to get people... Now, when you're saying, how do people cope? You see, that's very different for us than the vast majority of our people in our country,
that's right.
in the villages,
where
this level of stigma and the effects of stigma are even greater.
Yeah.
If Uganda Alzheimer's Association is going to start... is in the process now of starting support groups.
Yeah.
But you see, for the support groups in town, they can be, and they will be self-running. There will be self-run, self-support groups with people like Sheba, people like other people who I know, or let's say her age, whose a parent has Alzheimer's or dementia. They can meet and share experiences, and it helps them realize that they're not alone. The reason why they're in Kampala, or they're in Kampala, they can find a place they can all go to once lockdown is lifted. It will be private. They know each other. They can talk to each other, etc. And they can choose a day. Maybe they're having tea with cake and they're talking. But you see, in the village, if you go with 5,000 shillings, if any of you have traveled in sometimes the villages, you go with a 5,000 shilling note, the person you bought something from cannot give you change because the 4,000 shilling notes change. They don't have that money.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to get a self-supporting support group
in
the village?
So is there something that Uganda Alzheimer's Association is, you said you're trying to come up with support groups?
Yes.
Is that catering to the village as well?
Yes, that's the reason why I'm highlighting that. Yeah. The assumption that people in town or people with our level of privilege will be able to handle it the way elsewhere is just doesn't hold. So it's not only the support groups, but what do we do? What do we need to do elsewhere in the country is an awareness campaign. So that families, even if they're not yet ready to come out openly, they know where they can turn to and ask, where can I go to a doctor?
Yes.
Part of what we want to do as the Uganda Alzheimer's Association, apart from support groups and awareness, is actually to become a center for information. You referred to me a number of times as an Alzheimer medical expert. No, I'm not, actually. Yeah? I'm neither a neurologist or psychiatrist or whatever, that kind of thing. But I am a medical doctor. And I did have a patient who has Alzheimer's, etc. So from that point of view, yes. However, what we do want to do is to set up a center whereby if anyone calls, we'll be able to tell them, get in touch with so-and-so. We'll be able to refer them, or I'll be able to say, give me your number, I'm going to get someone in touch with you. Hopefully, with time, wherever you are in the country. So that, for as far as the patient is concerned, if someone called me, I'll be able to refer them at this place, this place, this place. As far as the caretakers are concerned, if they call me, I'll be able to say, oh, you live in Ntinda. In Ntinda, there's, you live in Ntinda, you're about 35 years old. Okay, in Ntinda, there's a support group. Age range between this to this that meets there. Okay, on this particular day. In that support group, we don't want medical people. Not only will they be self-supporting support groups of people who are affected by Alzheimer's and caregivers. But also, they would be the point from which someone in the support group who would have worked with to be able to be the link to all the others. For want of another word, would be the facilitator in the support group, the central core. That person would also be able to recognize and pick up that there's someone who's having a particularly hard time and maybe requires personal help. Not a psychiatrist, maybe someone else to go and talk to about emotional support. So our support groups will be a link to being able to tell them that, you know what, perhaps, why don't you go and see so-and-so, etc. Those are the kind of things we want.
And you want to take them as far as our villages as well. To extend that kind of help.
It's simply a concept. There's no reason why that cannot, if it can happen in Kampala, it should be able to. In fact, it's an absolute must that it must happen in the village. You see, we people in Kampala, even though it's the emotional toll is actually, it really is quite amazing. We are more able to absorb the other factors, the financial costs, to brush off to an extent the stigmatization issue, to move on with life, etc. Think about the people in the villages. They can't. This is a person who, for normal things, are not going to be able to, they have to walk 5 kilometers to a clinic for malaria. So they will do it for malaria for their child. But this is now a stigmatized condition and you're going to go there? No. So it requires the fact that we must translate this level of support to the people in rural needs.
So you take it into the communities so that people are able to access this kind of help. Wow, this is amazing. And it's good to know that this kind of help is going to actually be extended because we need it. And for something like dementia that has a lot of stigma and a lot of information is not really given out there, so it would be really great. Thank you for that kind of initiative.
Thank you.
We really do look forward to that actualization of that, and I think it will be really helpful to the people in the communities. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. We truly appreciate the immense knowledge and just the awareness around dementia that we just do not know about, and I think it's important. I've learned a lot, and I hope that somebody out there has also taken something from this. For those of us who are going through dementia right now, do not lose hope, and it's really important to be open about this and have these kinds of conversations running in our communities, in our homes. Do not suffer in silence. There is help out there for you. Thank you so much for watching. We do appreciate you, and please do subscribe. I will also be sharing a link of the Uganda Alzheimer's Association just down below. So if you need any other information, or you need questions, or you need to approach them personally, please do get in touch with them. I will avail you that link. Thank you for watching. See you again next week.